Hey, Lou, what do you think about Georgia signing Gunner Stockton? Lou, have you heard the news? Have you heard the news, Lou? Georgia signed another five-star, Gunner Stockton. What do you think about that, Lou? What do I think about 2022 five-star dual threat QB just committed to Georgia the other day? Gunner Stockton. What do I think about that? I think he's got a great name, don't you? Great name for a quarterback, Gunner Stockton. What are some quarterbacks that would make sense? But Brett Favre was a gunner. What about a Georgia quarterback that fits that name? Matthew Stafford, he was a strong arm is kind of what you think about with that name, right? Gunner Stockton. Sounds like a wrestler name. Could be a wrestler name, Gunner Stockton. What do you think about this guy? He's obviously he's not like Matthew Stafford. We start there. He's a dual threat quarterback. Okay, I'll give you some thoughts on some of my thoughts on Gunner Stockton. But before I do, you have to keep in mind, I don't, generally speaking, have a lot of thoughts on any recruits. I'm not a recruiting expert. Recruiting is a weird game to follow, and you really have to devote a lot of time to it to understand it. To know what's going on or what might happen or what might not happen in recruiting. I don't do that. I'm honest and upfront about that. Most of my thoughts on recruiting are on recruiting in general, not necessarily player specific, but I'll give you some thoughts on Gunner Stockton. What Georgia quarterback in my lifetime does he potentially remind me of? Most recently, maybe an Aaron Murray type. Aaron Murray, of course, very athletic, very mobile, could run around, and could also sling the ball. Aaron Murray threw for a ton of yards. And you guys know this, been watching me for a while. Aaron Murray's the favorite Georgia quarterback probably ever for me. I have a soft spot for it. I absolutely love Aaron Murray. We've had some other successful dual threat quarterbacks, right? You got to go back a ways. DJ Shockley, Quincy Carter. We've had some that didn't work out for whatever reason. Justin Fields. Won't get me started on that. We've had some other ones too that never saw the field. But Gunner Stockton. A five-star quarterback. Who's going to say no to that? No one's going to turn that down. Now, you got Brock Vandagriff coming in this year's class, 2021. Gunner Stockton is in the following class, 2022. So you're in a situation where you're stacking quarterbacks again. Generally, that's great, and hopefully it works out great for UGA. Now, Kirby has an infamous disaster on his hands with the Jake Fromm, Jacob Eason, Justin Fields scenario that's still fresh in everyone's mind. And as hard as I've been on Kirby about that, and I don't know that there's been anyone, there definitely hasn't been any Georgia fan, it's been harder on Kirby Smart for the decisions he made involving the quarterbacks from 2017 to 2018. It's hard to imagine that same scenario playing out again and it turning out as bad for UGA again as it did the last time. So, and I am going to talk about Gunner Stockton, I promise. But before I talk specifically about him, though, let's look at an ideal scenario type of situation for Georgia at the quarterback position, right? Clearly, you got JT Daniels. He's the guy going into 2021. Brock Vandagriff is coming in as a true freshman, right? You also have Carson Beck on the roster, who was a freshman last year and redshirted. He only got into one game that I can think of off the top of my head. I don't think he threw a single pass. I think it was a fourth quarter type of deal, and he handed the ball off 5 or 6 times, and that was it. I've been of the opinion for a while about Carson Beck in particular that he's likely to never start a game for Georgia for a variety of reasons. None of those reasons involve him being a terrible quarterback. I think he's stuck at the wrong time at Georgia for him. Clearly, he wasn't the guy last year. He's clearly not the guy this year with JT Daniels still there. And I don't think he's as good as Brock Vandagriff. So even if you're looking to 2022, I don't see it for Carson Beck. I've long said I think Carson Beck will be a transfer out of Georgia at some time. I guess at this point would be at the end of this current season. Maybe even at the end of spring practice this year, this coming spring practice. you see a Carson Beck transfer. If it becomes clear to Carson Beck that he's behind Brock Vandergriff in the spring, he has to know not much chance for him to play ever at UJ. Maybe he transfers out then. At the latest, though, I think the end of this year. So when you look at Georgia's quarterback situation, JT Daniels this year, then he goes off to the NFL. Then in 2022, you would have a Brock Vandergriff who hopefully will have gotten some experience in 2021, even if it's fourth quarter experience. It would be his job in 2022 with then Gunnar Stockton as a true freshman. That gives Vandergriff 2 years, 22 and 23. If Gunnar is willing to wait, he would then be the guy in 24. After which season he would be eligible to go pro. So he could be a one and done guy or he could come back. I think that would be the ideal scenario, would be that Brock Vandergriff ends up being a really good quarterback and that Gunnar Stockton ends up being a really good quarterback and that Gunnar Stockton is willing to wait 2 full seasons behind Brock Vandergriff. That would be the ideal situation. Now, we don't see that very often anymore in college football with quarterbacks, especially highly rated ones. They tend to transfer out sooner rather than later. And the NCAA and the conferences are making it easier, not harder, for kids to transfer away with the transfer portal, and they're getting ready to do away with the having to sit out for 1 year thing, which they pretty much already did away with that anyway with the waiver system, but soon that will be officially a thing of the past. You'll be able to transfer one time anywhere you want for any reason at all, or for no reason at all, right? Will he be willing to sit around and wait? At this point in time, when you look at the way Georgia's quarterbacks line up with the quarterbacks we have, plus the quarterbacks we have coming in, the ideal scenario would be JT Daniels this year, Brock Vandergriff in 22 and 23, Gunnar Stockton in 24, and then depending on how he does, either he goes off to the pros at that point or he plays in 25. That's ideal. Now, does the ideal situation, is that normally the situation that plays out, the ideal situation? Rarely, but I'm not going to bury Kirby. I'm not going to pretend I'm not happy about the Gunnar Stockton thing just because I think Kirby blew the quarterback deal a couple of years ago. I'm not going to say, oh my God, I hope we never sign any more good quarterbacks because Kirby messed up with Fromm, Fields, and Eason. No, you hope Kirby has learned and makes the right decision this time. That's what you hope. But you always, it's always better to have more good players on your team than you need than not enough. The obvious issue, if you have more than you need, the issue becomes choosing the right ones, right? We've seen some teams make those tough decisions and make the right decision, and it worked out. Alabama benching Hurts for Tua. Clemson benching Kelly Bryant for Trevor Lawrence. Both those teams won national titles. So we've seen it work out. We've seen it not work out with Kirby choosing to stay with Fromm and watching Fields leave. So it can go either way. I'm not gonna say I don't want Gunnar Stockton because, oh my God, what if we have Gunnar and Brock and Kirby chooses the wrong guy? Well, what if we only have Brock and he turns out to be terrible? I'm not saying I think he will, but let's be honest. And let's get into recruiting in general now, and more specifically, Gunnar Stockton. Is every 5-star that comes to college an amazing college player that goes on to the NFL? No. Clearly, there's plenty of 5-stars you can find that didn't work out, quote unquote busts, or didn't live up to the hype, or whatever. Then there's plenty of 3-stars that you can find that had amazing college careers. Mac Jones and Kyle Trask come to mind, right? So it can go either way. But the math doesn't lie. A much higher percentage of 5-star players become elite than 3-star players. If you ask any coach in America, would they rather have a team of 85 5-stars or 85 3-stars? Every single one of them is going to say, give me the 85 5-stars. Every single time. Talent wins in college football. Yes, you got to know what you're doing as a head coach. Yes, play calling, scheme, and philosophy matter. But they don't matter as much as talent. Talent is still king in college football, and the more that talent you can stack up, the better your chances are of being successful in college football. So, of course, you want all these guys. Let's say for a second, Kirby does screw up the QB situation again, and for whatever reason, the better of the two quarterbacks is sitting on the bench at Georgia for a year. Well, that's one year that quarterback's not at, I don't know, Florida. Florida would give their left arm to have Gunnar Stockton in their 2022 class. Dan Mullen can't sign an elite quarterback to save his life. You don't believe me? Watch Florida's offense in 2021. It's going to be abysmal. It's going to be terrible. Why? Well, because Emory Jones is no good, and the other quarterback that Dan Mullen has signed in his time at Gainesville is Anthony Richardson, who spends most of his time, that I've seen anyway, playing wide receiver at Florida, which they also don't have any of those. So, and this isn't a Dan Mullen thing. Point is, Gunnar Stockton would be a higher-rated quarterback, is a higher-rated quarterback than anybody that Dan Mullen has ever signed. Anybody would want him, is the point I'm making. And, of course, he was committed to South Carolina for a long time under Will Muschamp, which would have been a huge get for South Carolina in general, and Will Muschamp would have been the highest-rated player that ever signed there. Will Muschamp fired. Gunnar Stockton decommits. He's from, obviously, the state of Georgia. Commits to Georgia a couple of days ago. He's the 25th, 26th ranked player in America overall, regardless of position. He's the 25th or 26th highest rated player. I use 24/7 Sports when I talk about recruiting. If you want to use a different site and have different numbers, that's fine. I always use 24/7 so that I can be consistent across the board when I'm talking about these kids and these ratings. So he's the 25th, 26th highest rated recruit in America. He's from the state of Georgia. I believe he's the third highest rated prospect in the state of Georgia for 2022, and the number one overall dual threat quarterback in the country for 2022. Again, a 5-star, so very highly rated guy. I've seen him play in high school one time. In fact, he played against Brock Vandagriff's team early in the season, this past season, and the game was on ESPN, and I did watch it. Gunnar Stockton looked good. He looked real good. I remember watching that game and then going into the Georgia Facebook group that I run and seeing a lot of people going, oh no, Kirby recruited the wrong guy. Kirby got Brock. Gunnar is clearly better. Hard to take much of anything away from one game, isn't it? Gunnar did look really good in that game. And he's looked good in a lot of other games, but so has Brock Vandagriff. Another sort of advantage that Gunnar had in some people's mind over Brock was the competition level. Brock Vandagriff is in a small, private Christian classification within Georgia high school, whereas Gunnar Stockton plays in a higher division, so therefore sees better, tougher competition from week to week. And while I do buy into that too, that competition matters, I feel like anyway, competition matters less now in terms of judging a recruit than it did even 5 years ago, but definitely 10, 15, 20 years ago. With all these camps that they have now, starting with the Elite 11, which everyone knows, Nike's The Open, all this kind of stuff, but all the way down, there's just tons of camps. There's local camps, there's regional camps, there's state camps, there's national camps. So, you know, you take a kid like Brock Vandagriff who plays in a small Christian league within the state of Georgia, not very good competition, but you put him in one of these camps with, you know, the other 8, 9, 10 best quarterbacks in America and the best 15 or 20 defensive backs in America and the best 30 linebackers in America, you get a pretty good idea of what he can do, and what he can do is pretty impressive. And that's where a lot of these ratings and rankings and things like that come from nowadays on 24/7 and everywhere else, is how these kids perform at these camps. So Brock, really good. Gunnar Stockton, really good. Are they both going to be Are they both gonna be great in college? Who knows? Are they both gonna be busts? Who knows? Odds not high of that, in my opinion. It's like I said, we all can name some 5-stars who haven't worked out, but in general, you know, the odds favor a 5-star. And even if you have one that's a bust, makes it an even better of an idea that you're recruiting another 5-star at that same position. In this case, right behind him in the next class, 2021 for Brock, 2022 for Gunnar. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see. Got to get some skill position players in this 2022 class for Georgia, too, if you want to talk specifically about Georgia recruiting. Georgia had another great class in 2021, headlined, of course, by Brock Vandagriff. Where's the other skill position players in the 2021 class, though? They're not there. Georgia didn't sign any top 100 players in terms of wide receivers, running backs, or tight ends in the 21 class. Okay, now that's not the end of the world. Georgia has signed plenty of running backs and wide receivers and tight ends over the last couple of years. You can afford to sort of miss 1 year. You can't afford to miss 2 years, though. So 2022, time to start reloading some of those skill position groups. Georgia, what did we finish? Second or third? Third in the 21 recruiting cycle, which wraps up next week. But Georgia will finish third. And we're currently third in the 2022 class with now 2 5 stars, Gunner Stockton and Bowie, or what's the guy's? He's a defensive back. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Something Bowie, defensive back. So 2 5 stars so far for 2022, currently third class, 2022. So we'll see. Need some more skill positions in 2022. 2021 class, great overall, but like I said, go through and look. No top 100 wide receivers, running backs, or tight ends. So got to make up for that 2022. So there you go. That's my thoughts on Gunner Stockton. So I know what everyone's going to say. Doesn't matter. Kirby ruins quarterbacks. And hell, hard for me to argue that point right now. But, you know, again, I'd rather have them than not. I would rather have them than not. Again, I've been the harshest critic of Kirby Smart when it comes to his handling of the quarterback situation. So there's nothing really you can say about it that I haven't said 100 times. I would still rather have a 5-star than not have him. And, you know, I'm pretty sure whoever you are watching this video and whatever fan you're a team of, you feel the same way. You'd rather have them than not. Like I said, maybe it's true. Maybe Kirby doesn't know how to handle elite quarterbacks, doesn't know what to do with elite quarterbacks. Maybe all that's true. I don't know. But if they're sitting on the bench at Georgia, they're not throwing touchdowns at Florida or Alabama or South Carolina or Tennessee or whatever else. So there's some positive way to look at it no matter what. All right, that's it. Have a great morning.